Welcome to Power Nap Live. I am back and listen. We're going to go there a little bit today, okay? So, right now, just about everybody I know and probably everybody you know are watching a specific documentary, okay? That's full of scandal. But what they may not realize is full of the dark side of leadership. And that's what we're going to talk about today because that's kind of what stopped me in my tracks. Y'all know I love to get stopped in my tracks, okay? But that not my tracks, but my tracks, okay? So here's the thing. The thing that I thought of is I watched the documentary. We know, right? Is that we have created a world where charisma covers harm until the internet catches up, right? So while the headlines and the documentaries and the drama and the tea of it all might feel shocking, we all know that this behavior is not unfamiliar. Okay. Because we've all seen versions of this at work. We've all seen versions of this when we've been in organizations and different places. And we are going to talk about it and unpack it right after this. All right, y'all. Good morning again, and welcome back to Power Nap Live. I've got folks already going wild in the comments, asking questions. Oh, you didn't miss last week, even if you weren't here. We took a break for Thanksgiving to be grateful. What right now, what's a popular movie? Oh my gosh, it literally has a song popular, Wicked. Okay, so I feel like in there they're like grateful. And so, no, we took a break to be grateful. But listen, let's not drag our feet. Okay, we're here to talk about the drama. Someone said, "What documentary?" Okay, if you haven't seen the documentary, there is one right now that has been executively produced. One of the executive producers is Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. And of course, I don't want the drama of saying what it is, if that makes sense. But if you haven't checked it out, feel free to look at it. But it documents a specific music mogul prior to them being convicted of some specific crimes, right? And so it follows this person. They actually have video footage that this person actually, I think, asked people to shoot. But if someone was able to get it, I guess, when this person went to jail. And so they've used it, or prison. You know, we all know jail and prison are different. Whatever the case is, words mean things. But they were able to secure this footage and put it together with other footage that they got to document this person's career from like beginning to end. Okay. So if you're not super into entertainment, I see someone in the comments going like, "I'm not super into entertainment stuff." That's just fine, because I'm not here to talk about completely all the drama, but I do want to break down kind of some of the stuff that we're seeing. Okay. Because in this documentary, we see that some leaders use influence, right, to empower people. But in the documentary, we actually see that other people use it to control, right? This person is not using their influence to empower the people around them. And we've seen that. Hopefully you've seen it. Maybe you've worked for someone that used their influence to empower people. But in this specific documentary, this person is using, or at least from what I can see, their influence to control people. And that's what makes this conversation so important. It's incredibly important for us to understand that every strength that we admire in leaders can have a shadow side when it's unchecked. Influence without integrity becomes manipulation. Confidence without empathy becomes intimidation. Drive without boundaries can easily become exploitation. When people are loyalty without any or experience or give loyalty without any discernment, it can become silence. When people have a vision but they don't have any accountability, that just simply becomes control. So strengths don't just, and I had this conversation with a lot of teams, strengths don't just stop being strengths, right? They just literally, when we overdo them, when we do them too frequently, they become too loud. When we lean on them way too hard, right? Kind of like think about if you're in the car and your favorite song comes on, you're going to turn that music up, right? But if you get back in the car later after you forgot that music is on, what happens? It blares at you incredibly loudly. That doesn't make music bad. It made it too loud in the moment, right? So strengths don't stop being strengths just because people use them, maybe not for good. They just start hurting people when they're too loud, too frequent, right? And here's the thing, this is not about just one person, even though, of course, seeing that documentary made me think about this stuff. It's all about patterns. So let's look at what happens when when a leader's strength, because we all know leaders, all of us, right? We know that I use the term leader, especially as I talk about this, when I'm saying anyone. We're all leaders in our lives. Even if you just have a dog, you a leader. You lead that dog. You're the leader of your pack. So when I say leaders, I mean anyone, right? Anything that you're leading in your life makes you a leader, even if it's just yourself, right? So let's look at what happens when leaders' strengths or your own personal strengths go too far. Okay. So we often praise leaders for being charismatic, having a lot of charisma, right? But when they overuse that charisma, that can provide a mask that hides harm, especially harm that's happening to other people, right? Bold leadership is a strength that we often praise in people when they make bold decisions and they're out there doing stuff. But also, bold leadership in the shadow side of it can often become bullying, right? What about high standards? We all want leaders that have high standards. I have high standards for myself and the work that I do and that I provide for any of my clients. Maximizer, achiever, competition are all top strengths of mine, right? When we think about the Clifton strengths universe. But when people have high standards, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic to have as a leader. But when it becomes overused, used too frequently, hit too deeply, it can be perfectionism that literally destroys teams. Let's think about determination, right? Lots of people, when we think about leaders, we want a leader that's determined, that has grit, that's never willing to not dig in, right? That puts their cleats into the ground and doesn't let up. I got a little football-y right there. I don't think I did, but whatever the case is, you probably visualize someone on a football field literally digging in. We always praise leaders for determination, but the shadow side of that, when they do it too frequently, too hard, when they push it too much, can be pushing past consent or even pushing past people's boundaries when it's left unchecked, right? Or done too often or too frequently. Passion, right? You don't watch the show just because I sit on here and go like, you guys be leaders. You listen because I'm passionate about what I'm talking about. But even passion is a leadership trait that's phenomenal that we often praise people for. When it's done too much, the shadow side of that can literally be controlling behavior. We love a strong leader. We live for them. We give them these, okay? But we rarely teach them. We rarely teach other leaders. We rarely hold people to the flame about making sure that they're self aware, right? about understanding not just the things that make them strong, that make them show up as wonderful leaders, but the work that I do with teams is to help them be self aware around not just the good stuff, but what your amazing strengths could do when they're flipped or too far on the shadow side, right? Because that can negatively impact our relationships, which is what we're seeing over and over in these tell all documentaries, right? Again, we love strong leaders, but when they are not self aware, when they go unchecked, when they allow their strengths to go overdone, we start to hear stories from the people who work from them like, oh, that's just how they are. Or folks saying, no, nobody wanted to speak up, nobody could say anything. Or we didn't want to mess up the money. We didn't want to mess it up. The money was coming in, even though this person was horrible to us or was overdoing their strengths, the money was coming, so we kept quiet. Or the results were just too good to question the process, right? That's the stuff we start to hear in every one of these documentaries talking about how people treated them, and specifically talking about how celebrated leaders were not operating from a place of self-awareness, and specifically operating in overdone, in their strengths, the thing that literally made them celebrated as overdone. That's why we hear stories like that. But here is the truth. If silence is the thing that keeps you safe, then you are not working in a healthy culture. If literally your ability to keep quiet about what is happening, then you need to be thinking to yourself, beloved, I gotta put my Ayala hat on today, okay, and hit you with a beloved, because that is not a healthy culture. If you are the leader that's creating a culture that people work in where silence is literally the thing that keeps them safe, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You need to think about what that looks like. You're in a dangerous one if that's you. You in danger, girl. That's what Whoopi said. You're in danger. And that silence is actually what becomes part of the harm. In this documentary that I'm talking about, like I said, I'm not gonna name it, okay, because your girl over here ain't trying to get into trouble with nobody, okay? I'll talk about it, but I ain't gonna say it, all right? Whatever the case is, in it, you hear constantly multiple people that are quiet until, right? It's the silence. The silence helped this person that has all of these things that people are saying they did, right? Allegedly. Allegedly, okay? Whatever the case is, and whatever your belief about what they did, right? Silence was one of the key ways that this person was able to continue to be a menace to society and the people around them. This is where culture really shows up, okay? Not in just what leaders say, but literally in what followers enable. People only think that leaders are the people that have the power in these situations, but truly, even if you aren't the top person at your job, even if in hierarchy you aren't the main supervisor or whatever the case is, we've got to start understanding, not just at work, but in life, that followers are who enable some of these negative behaviors, right? And silence is a part of that. As we think about the bystander effect that happens specifically in a lot of the places that we work in, you've got to start asking yourself, what behaviors do we excuse because someone's talented? I'm gonna tell myself a little bit, okay? I've worked in lots of different places where my talent has allowed me to be able to do things that other people didn't do. Fortunately, I'm someone with a good moral compass and would always do right because my mama and daddy taught me to do that, right? But there are times and places where my ability to be able to get things done or whatever the case is would allow me to do things differently. If I everybody else may have been at work at 9 o'clock. And for me, even though I stayed late and did whatever, there were places where I would go, no, I don't want to get here until 9:30. And that is what I would do. And it wouldn't be brought up with me because I would perform incredibly well. But you have to ask yourself, right? What behaviors do we excuse because someone is talented? Is success being rewarded no matter the cost, the human cost? That's a big one. Hi, good morning. So good to see you. That's a huge one as we watch this documentary, to think to ourselves, is success being rewarded no matter the human cost? And in this situation, yes. This person continued to make tons of money. This person continued to be able to throw parties, to make all of these different things, even at the very beginning of their career, we show that human cost was not important to this person. Is accountability optional for the highest performers? Do you work in a place? Are you the manager that doesn't hold people accountable just because they're incredibly high performers? Have you worked in a place like that before? We've got to start asking ourselves these real questions. Do we teach people as people who work for us, or where we are? Do you work in an environment where we teach people how to call out harm instead of just surviving it? Multiple people in this documentary talk about the harm that they lived alongside other people experiencing harm. Now, I am never, ever going to blame victims. We don't blame victims over on this side of YouTube, okay? But what I will say is that we have got to create environments. We, the people who are now the supervisors, the CEOs, the managers in companies, right? Especially us millennials. I'm calling us out because we're moving into so many of those spaces, right? Just about every millennial that I know, right, is in a leadership position at this point. Are you doing your part to create a culture where we call out harm instead of people just surviving it? Are you doing that not just at work, but in your home? Can people call out harm instead of just surviving it? People should not just be surviving you. Whew, that hit hard. Are people just surviving you? Have you asked yourself that? This person in this documentary never, I'm sure, I can't say what somebody did for sure, but I can say that the behaviors didn't look like they ever asked themselves, are people just surviving me? Because when fame or power become the reason that everybody looks away, we're not talking about leadership anymore. You're talking about control. It's not leadership anymore. It's literally just control. Okay. So here's the thing, I'm always have to bring it to strategic rest, okay? No matter what, right? So strategic rest is not just about relaxation. We know that. If you don't know about the term strategic rest, or now you know that I am a colleague of mine, Dr. Kelly. Oh my goodness, Dr. Kelly Dixon and I wrote a book called Strategic Rest in Leadership. Check it out. We give you the NAP framework to help you be able to understand how to practice strategic rest, okay? But strategic rest is all about accountability. It's about reflection. It's literally a course correction. And as you think about strategic rest and the kind of leader that you want to be, especially one who is in a culture that's not causing harm to people, that people aren't literally just having to survive you and your leadership, you need to be asking yourself some key questions, okay? Am I leading people towards growth or towards fear? Have you asked yourself that? Do I lead in a way that leads people towards growth or literally towards fear? The second question I want you to ask yourself, am I using my strengths to lift people up or only to elevate myself? We saw in this documentary that I'm referencing that this person used their strengths constantly to lift themselves up, right? And not the people around them. There was a point where someone was going to have a major magazine that they were going to be on the cover of the magazine. And you would think, as the leader of this organization, that person would celebrate that and be excited that a part of their work helped that person do that. But instead, they said, absolutely not. I want the cover. Have you worked for somebody who always wants the cover? I know you have. If you have, let me know in the comments. Have you worked for someone that always wants the cover? But we real over here. Are you the kind of leader who always wants the cover? Even when the cover belongs to someone who works for you. So we're asking ourselves, are we leading people towards growth or towards fear? We're asking ourselves, am I using my strengths to lift people up or only to elevate myself? And the final question I want you to ask yourself this week is, do people flourish around me or do they shrink? Do people flourish around you? As a friend, as a coworker, as a whoever, I endeavor to be someone that people flourish around me, not shrink. And if you're somebody I know that you shrink around me, right? Please let me know, because it can't go unchecked, right? Or we see exactly what happens. Hey, good morning. I see some other folks checking in. Let me know where you're streaming from, because I want to know. So, do people flourish around you or do they shrink? Rest creates space for truths like that to be seen. But here's the thing, here's what we've got to remember, that no greatness is worth losing our humanity. No greatness is worth losing our humanity. It may feel like it. Don't get me wrong. Your girl likes expensive things, okay? But I have to truly believe in my heart of hearts that my moral compass tells me that no greatness is worth losing your humanity. So as we wrap up this week, I want you to reflect on this. What is one strength that you depend on a lot? What's one that you depend on so much that sometimes it becomes a weapon? I want you to say it out loud. You can drop it in the chat if you feel comfortable doing that. But what is one of the things that makes you the one of your strengths that you use often, but that you realize when you use it too frequently, too hard, too much like the person we talked about in this documentary, right? That it can become a weapon, literally, that you wield against other people. So say it out loud to yourself. You don't have to tell me, right? Or drop it in the chat, but I want you to say, my strength is blank, and the shadow shows up when I blank. Okay. I want you to fill that in, to really think about this today, this week, whenever you do that reflection, when you take that strategic rest, because when we can name it, y'all, we can change it, but we can't change it if we can't name it. So if you're a leader that wants to build a culture where strengths are elevated, or to use your strengths in order to elevate a culture that you work in, not erode it, to help build your people. This is the work that I do every day with organizations and leadership teams, okay? So send me a message, literally just say impact. Erin, I want to make impact, and I will let you know how we can work together so that you can build a healthy, high performance culture grounded in accountability, trust, and real strengths, and using those in the positive way and not on the shadow side. So this documentary may literally be trending, but leadership accountability should always be trending. That's what we're seeing here. Leadership accountability not being what's at the forefront of our lives. Okay. So You guys, thank you so much for spending some Sunday time with me. If you're watching this later, please make sure that you comment, like, subscribe, share this with someone who's watching the documentary, okay? Because remember, charisma is not character, all right? Strength is not an excuse, and power without care is literally harm. All right. Until next time, I'll see you right back here next Sunday, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. Until then, make good decisions and rest like you mean it. Bye, y'all.